And as the closure of the Nigerian borders lingers, there are fears that the increase in volume of cargo to the seaports may worsen the congestion phenomenon. Already, port operators have confirmed increased patronage, but there are rising concerns that prevailing challenges at the seaports may hamper swift cargo clearance and evacuation. Our sources reveal that many of the terminals in Lagos ports are currently experiencing congestion, with about 80% of the freight belonging to government agencies. Situation may worsen as more ships are expected to berth in the coming weeks. National President of the Association of Nigerian Licensed Custom Agents, Attorney Nwabuike, joins me in the studio to discuss this. It's good to have you, and good morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, you've heard the intro there. So how would you appraise current efforts so far to decongest the ports?
Okay, the federal government of Nigeria, through customs services, actually doing a great job this time around, making sure that the facilitation of trade and making it very possible that every single consignment that comes into the port has a very easy access to go out. Apart from the gridlock we actually experienced before, which has actually gotten a lesser period now. But other things are on cuts because they have a mandate to do the right things right and make things work very fast.
All right, to a large extent, the government, do you think it has achieved its aim with the border closure? And how is this impacting on, the ports recently?
Okay, the border closure, like we always know, is purely for security reasons. I'll tell you that we have ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme, and the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme has its own procedures. But the other neighboring countries are actually not working according to the tandem of the procedure of the ECOWAS trade liberalization, and the federal government said that you have to play through the gallery, you have to do exactly what the ECOWAS trade liberalization has said. And what has it said? That you have to get the consignment that is actually going through transformation from Nigeria, from Benin Republic to Nigeria. You have to get the whole consignment on the containerized cargo. Take the consignment to the border, hand it over to the customs of Nigeria so that they do examination and give appropriate duty. But what they are actually saying, the federal government said that they are not playing to that level. What they do is to stuff in that particular country and begin to load it on a particular vessel, particular lorries, and take it to the border post without having the proper duty.
All right. So based on that non-compliance on the neighboring countries to that pact you just mentioned, that's also impacting on the port's business as it were. So how would you describe that scenario?
Yeah, non-compliance, like you rightly say, actually made federal government of Nigeria to close the border post pending when they comply. And again, we have been experiencing surge of goods and services from Nigerian ports and airports. That means that we're having a whole lot of volumes of consignments coming into Nigerian ports. And it's going to be increasing because we're in a period of festive period, and this is the situation of time now.
And talking about, evacuation of these goods and services, because I tend to pass through the area where most of these port facilities are located, and I've seen a certain surge of heavy reliance on the road transportation haulage, as it were. So when are we going to de-emphasize on road haulage and at least improve the rails? At least some of the old lines are still at the ports, and it should ease easy access of goods to other parts of the country with the rails.
Yeah, if you look at the Minister of Transport these days, he's so emphasizing on transportation through rails. Yes. And he has worked a whole lot of things. He has gotten the most of bilateral agreements with some foreign companies on road transportation, rail transportation. Until we have a very wonderful rail transportation, we will still experiencing this high level of problems of the roads. One, you should know that our roads are not wonderful. Two, you should know that the trucks that are actually carrying those goods are not equally up to standard. And again, you know that it must have to be rail to evacuate a whole large quantity of goods to northern states or other areas. So I think federal government, knowing true well that it's one of the most impending problems, is actually using Minister of Transport. Because if you look at the Minister of Transport, he has actually specified his duty on railways. On railways, he's actually working on that, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. But that has not actually done much because they don't have enough wagon, they don't have enough coaches, and they have not done enough until that we get to that particular level.
Indeed, and we're seeing a lot of bureaucracy when it comes to such issues, as it were. Now, let's talk about the issue of privatization. Could that be an option to these ports if they're fully privatized? Do you think to a large extent it'll aid decongestion? And we're seeing some players even thinking about building ports right now, and not too long ago, I'm not going to mention one or two, but, you know, is that a good way to go?
Yes, it's going to be a good thing, but remember that we have actually do concessioning of the ports. And in this concession of the port, the port operators have not actually done enough work to show that privatization should work. And I strongly believe that you don't have to do privatization in the area of security apparatus that's supposed to be there. Federal government will be very conscious of security on this privatization. And again, privatizing to the foreign companies is actually another big problem, because if, you know, those foreigners are just there to monitor, do their things and get their gains.
Indeed.
So I think privatization shouldn't be the issue now. The issue is that federal government should help to enhance the movement of cargoes on the ports.
So do you think to a large extent we're still embarking on protectionism when it comes to you know, the issue of the border closure, and how is that affecting the fortunes of the business within the port itself?
Yes, the issue of border closure actually affected so many goods and services in the border post. Like, you know, it's not only importation of the goods, equally exportation of the goods, and the relationship between the two countries. Like recently, Ghana are saying, we are allowing your goods, you should allow our goods. And another one, Nigerian Republic have actually mandated his people not to export rights to Nigeria any further. So they are beginning to understand that, you know, the bilateral agreement on the vessels, on the consignments is equally important. So we are thinking that very short period of time, it's going to be having a solution to that effect. But the truth of the matter is that the federal government is doing what they know and what they want to do.
Now, we can't talk about the ports without the customs service, as it were. So have they also been proactive in terms of, you know, providing that leverage for the government to act on in terms of seizures of goods that are not supposed to come in and other aspects of their paraphernalia, as it were? Yes,
recently the CGC Customs have actually worked very hard providing the boats, fighter boats to combat the smugglings, then putting all the checks on the unapproved routes of the custom area of the border posts. And even our borders, all of them are closed. I was privileged to be in Nigerian Republic very recently. I went to Maradi, I went to Koni, and I saw even some of our trucks, like Dangote trucks, like Sokoto Bua trucks, they're all trapped in Koni, almost 2 hours.
So what does that tell you? You witnessed, you know, firsthand, you know, that kind of anomaly. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, that shows that they are complying, that the federal government has actually put an enforcement to that effect, and we should do the things right. I think we should do the things right.
All right. In terms of revenue generation, that has always been another thorny issue. With the, you know, they've had to declare every now and then quarterly results. And so, how would you assess that?
Yeah, the revenue should increase this time around. We are waiting till the end of the year to see exactly what the whole thing is all about. But I must confess to you that too many unapproved routes has been blocked, and too many non-compliance or paid duties and services have been actually checkmated, and we are going to experience a high revenue turnaround from the customs.
All right,
the custom agents.
Very good. You represent, you know, freight forwarders and all, you know, like-minded business, as it were. So, how would you, in view of the challenges we're currently experiencing, how has business been? Yeah,
our business, you know, we have 4 areas of businesses. Right. We have airports, we have seaports, and we have border posts. And we can tell you that the border posts are actually experiencing very low turnout of business because it's permanently closed for now. Okay. But the seaports and the airports are actually booming up. Okay. Yes, we can say that...
but what are the immediate challenges? Yes, despite the boom, as it were.
The immediate challenges are just like what I told you, taking the consignments out of the ports, you know, in as much as the presidential task force on the removing the gridlocks has worked so hard, almost 60%, but the problems are still there. Then again is to facilitate the trade. We need to do turnaround maintenance of the goods and services, making sure that we get our goods out of the port within 24 hours according to the ease of doing business procedure. So the issue is that we are actually asking the government agencies in the port to facilitate trade. They must have to facilitate the trade so that we can get the challenges of getting the goods out of the port very fast, as it were.
As part of facilitating the ease of doing business and getting these goods coming in, there have been instances where equipment-wise, in terms of the X-ray machines, as it were, and stuff like that. That's part of the challenges that hinders these goods from coming in.
Yes, from look of things, we think, in fact, we have been agitated and been written a letter to federal government of Nigeria that we need scanners in the port.
That's it.
Because we need scanners in the port. If you do scanning, it will ease this physical examination of 100% examination so that people will have their goods, those who are blue chip companies can take their consignments out without even doing the examination. If the scanner shows you blue, then you actually exit. If it shows you yellow, that means you have to take some of one or two other things. But if it shows you red, it's a physical examination, 100% examination. I think scanner is important at this point in time in the ports.
Very good. And we also have to talk about the issue of revenue itself. If in 60 seconds, in terms of people relying on, in terms of smuggling and what have you, and then we have a situation whereby the tariffs. So how would you compare the two? Nigerian tariffs.
The issue is that the federal government of Nigeria has actually centered maritime industry as another revenue generation company. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be one of trade facilitation, ease of doing business, and knowing the relationship between other countries and balancing the trade. But when you now give targets of a particular number, so on a particular amount, it gives pressure, it pushes pressure into people. Then I think our tariffs are very high. We should look into our tariffs. Federal government of Nigeria, through National Assembly, should look into our tariffs. The tariffs in Nigeria is very high, and the taxation is equally very high. So they should begin to bring it down. Let me give you an example of a car like Land Cruiser. Right. If you buy a Land Cruiser, $100,000, and you pay duty of 35%, pay levy at 5%. At the end of the day,
and that's a lot.
You pay another. By the time you know it, you have paid almost 90% of the same goods.
Indeed, that's a lot.
So
all right. On that note, Tony Nwabuike, our maritime expert, I'd like to end it here. I'd like to thank you very much for your thoughts on those issues.